I'm Wendy, a relationship specialist. I'd like to welcome you to Love, Listen, Talk, Repeat, a podcast that talks all about relationships. They come in all shapes and sizes, and each one's unique. So in this podcast, I chat with guests about life events and issues that can affect relationships, as well as discussing different types of relationships that may not always fit the mould of being mainstream. There will also be some episodes where it's just me talking about something that may be helpful in your relationship. So for now, just sit back and enjoy. Hi, it's Wendy here, and in this episode I'm going to talk about snooping on your partner and the effects it can have. I've noticed that this technological age seems to encourage people to want to keep in touch constantly, knowing exactly what the other is doing all the time. Social media shares people's contacts, activities, and who they spend time with, and even when they're online, let alone the tracking apps that can be held on people where they are in a particular time, which could be very, very intrusive. With the advent of mobile phones, we can keep in contact with each other 24/7 in virtually any country in the world, even to the point that it has to be responded to instantly. However, this can be very intrusive, especially when it comes to relationships. The conversations often go like this: why aren't you answering my calls, my texts, my messages? Don't you love me anymore? Your partner should be an equal, not your child, and you don't need to parent them. This kind of controlling behaviour is not only unhealthy, but it's claustrophobic too. Do you really feel you've got the right to know everything about each other, or what they think, what they do? And do you think it really makes a relationship closer and more intimate? My past experience in being such a relationship was that it made me feel anxious, stressed, very unhappy, to the point I had to leave it. I just couldn't bear it anymore. Does knowing exactly that your partner is doing every second of the day mean it's a strong, intimate relationship? It doesn't allow each other personally. I'd suggest it's very claustrophobic. It doesn't allow each person room for their own emotional growth. Each of us has the right to some privacy in our lives. Being in a relationship doesn't mean we own each other. It does mean we're committed to each other, but not to the total exclusion of any contact with any other human being. If you feel a need to text or speak to each other several times a day, knowing what they had for lunch, who they talked to, what does that say about your relationship? What does that really mean? And really, when you get together, you've got nothing to talk about because you've said it all through the day. There's nothing to look forward to. Once you start feeling insecure in a relationship, it can lead to all kinds of behaviour, such as checking up on your partner if they seem offhand, for example. You begin to doubt their fidelity, and so you begin to start looking for evidence to support your fears. Checking their phone when they're not looking, their social media contacts, interactions, and their whereabouts. Does that sound really healthy? Does that sound like you trust each other? And what if you find some proof proof that you were looking for. Because as sure as done it, if you go looking for something, you'll find it. And it could have been just an off-the-cuff comment. But because you've seen it written down and it can't be taken back, you're going to believe it. You're going to read more into it. For example, it could be that your partner needs to maintain a civilized relationship with their ex for the sake of their children. And the ex on the other end of a text can be made out of, and when someone puts an X, stroke, cross, stroke, kiss on the end of a text, just out of habit, which I have to say some of my clients do to me because they've just got in the habit of it, it could just have been an accident. They didn't mean that. It's just that case of habit. And once it's sent, you can't erase it. So if you imagine that and start accusing your partner of being in contact with them, demanding they don't speak to them anymore, what kind of response do you think you'll receive? How would you feel if the tables were turned and your partner demanded that of you? Who you can speak to and who you can't? How would it feel, that child who needs their parents to have a civilised relationship so that they don't suffer? How do you think it feels for them? I think we need to stop and just take a breath there. Rather than making demands on each other, it's much, much better to have an open discussion so that each of you can put forward your feelings. Agree the boundaries within the relationship. If you don't, my fear is that the alternative is likely to be your partner furtively keeping in contact with their ex or friend that you disapprove of. And that just leads to mistrust and deceit. Ask yourself if you have evidence that your partner is untrustworthy, or is this about you and your experiences in the past? Were your parents unfaithful to each other, or did a previous partner cheat on you? An exclusive relationship doesn't mean your partner isn't allowed to have contact with others. I felt that in a previous relationship, and I felt like they were my jailer and I had no free will. It ground me down in the end, and that really isn't healthy. I lost my confidence and self-esteem. And it took a long time for it to come back. And if you care about somebody, there's no way you'd behave in that way. I always believe that it's better to have an honest and open conversation at the beginning of a relationship. Talk about boundaries openly. Keep the communication open throughout your relationship. If you're in a relationship and you haven't sorted these boundaries out, or there are issues, then talk about it. Don't go snooping around and checking up on your partner. It will only lead to unhappiness all round. I really hope you enjoy the podcast, and you can find all the details of this episode in the show notes. If you've enjoyed it, then why not leave a review so that others can find the podcast more easily? You'll find all the details that I mentioned in the show notes, as well as links to my website where you can find lots more information and links to other resources. My contact details are there too. If you'd like to receive my newsletter, which contains articles and my latest offers, then why not just email me? It's Wendy at yourrelationshipspecialist.co.uk. Details are in the show notes.